I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
First of all, I need to shout out the email because I always forget at the top of the show. And we got a couple of really good emails this week, so I was really happy. Shout out to Peter, shout out to Steve. Anyone who wants to shoot us an email, our email address is?
hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. And we do love hearing from you.
We do. One of the things I hear from people a lot is that they really like it when we don't have a guest.
Oh, you've heard that?
Do you not hear that?
No, I haven't heard that, but I mean, I enjoy when it's just us girls.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, me too. But we have such a good guest.
We have a great
Well, today
guest.
we have a great guest. Next week we have a great guest. So we have a lineup.
We're loading the docket.
We have a lineup of incredible guests. But ever since I watched the Indy 500, which I was so excited about, and then Monaco, which left me just questioning the entire league, I've really wanted to talk to Zach Brown. So we got him.
I love talking to Zach Brown because he is articulate and he's not so media trained that he's really boring. He is a
I think
real
he's just
person.
honest.
Yeah, he just speaks in straight lines. There's no BS. He answers questions directly. It's a dream. And he's a real person.
Yes,
I love
exactly.
That.
And obviously we watch Drive to Survive. You see this like battle of this like axis of evil, or whatever the antithesis of axis is.
Matt?
It's like Darth Vader versus Darth Vader when you have Toto and Christian. But I know Toto in real life is a nice guy. You've got Gunter.
Yes.
You had Gunter, who was like, the crazy guy dropping F-bombs all the time.
A great personality.
And it was a breath of fresh air every time I would see Zach, because he was like down to earth, honest dude.
Yes.
Plus he is like a young
exhale.
American, so it's nice to see that, in Formula One. But anyway.
It's crazy. It is crazy though how chill he comes off when you consider everything he's running and operating.
Yeah, his schedule must be nuts.
It's insane. Did you know that McLaren is the only company to win the Indy 500, 24-hour Le Mans, and Monaco?
I did not know that, but I know they've been having an awesome time of it lately.
Yeah.
Because they came in second in the Indy. They were second at Monaco. They were second before that. They were first. Obviously, Lando won at Miami, so
they're on an upswing for sure.
Let's get over to Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren, without any further ado. So my main question is around the differences that we watched when Monaco and Indy were happening. Like, Indy was one of the best races I've ever seen. I know it was painful for you guys because Pato came in second again and it was a last-minute pass, but it was so dramatic and it was so emotional, right? And Monaco was like the most boring race I've ever seen in my entire life. So the juxtaposition of that, I think, is I just like to hear your take on it.
I mean, Indy was unbelievable. I read it was only the fourth time in the history of the Indy 500 that the lead was exchanged on the last lap, which I thought I'd seen it more than that, but I read that, unless it's inaccurate data, but I don't think that's the case. It was amazing. We ran so strong all day. Kyle Larson, Pato, Alex Rossi. So I thought we had it there for a second, but I've been around Indy long enough to know that, especially with the drafting, that it's kind of dangerous to lead the last lap. So that was massively exciting. The team did a wonderful job. I think Kyle, had he not had his penalty in pit lane, I think we had 3 cars there. Would have had 3 cars there right at the end. Callum Ilott did a great job, finishing, I think it was 11th. So that was a massively exciting race. And at Monaco, interesting, when you're in the race, as we were, it's never dull. Even though, of course, I understand exactly what you're saying, and it wasn't there was no passing. But I think Formula One, it was so close, and you're just waiting for that driver to make a mistake that even though you kind of look at it now and go, that was boring, there was no passes, you're kind of always on your edge of the seat, because if Leclerc locked the brake, touched the wall, Oscar's winning the race. So to me, it was kind of how many ever laps it was, edge of your seat going, is he going to make a mistake? Is he going to make? And he just never made a mistake. So I found them both exciting, but for different reasons. But I think when you're in the game and you're running second and fourth in the race, in both, it's edge of your seat stuff. And Charles did a great job, just never made a mistake. But two different types of racing, two different types of circuits. One that has no passing, Monaco is unique in that sense, and one that has lots of passing on a big 2.5 mile oval.
McLaren is the only team that competes in Formula One, Indy Car, Formula E. You've got Extreme E, you've got esports. My big question for you is, how do you get it all done? Can you give us some best practices for how this is sustainable for you? I know you just renewed your contract until I think 2030. How are you finding your life sustainable and even joyful? I follow you on Instagram, of course, and you seem very well at ease and like you're enjoying things, but I know you're probably paddling furiously underneath everything.
It's all the above. First of all, I love my job. I love McLaren, always have. My favorite team growing up, and it's a privilege to work for McLaren. So it's a pretty cool job. That's a great place to start from. The travel's brutal. I think the secret to success, if you'd like, is having a great leadership team around me, and each racing team is self-sufficient. So the Indy Car team isn't dependent upon the F1 team, isn't dependent upon the Formula E team. There's a lot of commercial synergies, opportunities for our employees, synergies. So there's a lot of synergies, but the Formula One team here in Montreal doesn't need anything from the Indy Car team. And the Indy Car team's racing in Road America this weekend, and it doesn't need anything from the team in Formula One. So they can all run independently. The benefit is when you put them all together for our commercial partners, for employee opportunities. I'm kind of the only fool that flies around the world trying to be in all places at one time. But I love it. It's what I've been doing my whole life. It certainly has its days where you can just get tired, but I'm never tired of it. I just sometimes lack sleep. But I love being around these racing teams. Fortunately, in the digital world we live in, if I'm in the Indy 500, I've got my double, triple top secret Dell laptop like I am on pit walls. So I feel like I'm very connected to the Formula One team. Even if I'm not there, I'll do the same this weekend here in Montreal. I'll be watching the Road America race and be dialed into Gavin, who's running that team. So big organization, but we're in the racing business, and it's all running pretty smoothly. It was great to, in the same weekend, finish second in China in a Formula E race, second at the Indy 500, second in Monaco. Bittersweet that they weren't 3 wins, but pretty cool. But I think that shows how well each team operates independently. And I had no sleep that entire weekend.
And the win in Miami was incredible. I got to saw that too. That must have felt like such a triumph for you guys. And most watched race awesome in the U.S., I think.
Yeah, it was. I think it was awesome for the sport. I think it was awesome for McLaren and Lando. It was such a huge, popular win. Obviously, everyone wants to see a little bit less dominance. Everyone loves Lando. I mean, I've never met someone who's not a Lando fan. McLaren's obviously a team with rich history that I think we have awesome fans. So I think it was a very popular win at the right time. I think Lando, while he would never admit it, being the driver with the most podiums ever without a win is a bittersweet statistic that now that's behind him. I think more wins are coming. And since then, we've had 2 second places. So a lot of racing left to go in the season. And we're pushing hard to make sure that that was our first win of the year, not our last win of the year.
I like that. And I like that you said the less dominance turn of phrase that you had in there. I have to imagine that next year, with Lewis changing teams and Adrian Newey changing teams, we could expect a bit of a shuffle in who makes the podium. Is that what you're anticipating?
And with McLaren's resurgence this year? I mean,
sure, of course, yeah, of course, you guys are really on a rise.
Yeah, I think if I look at the teams on the grid, first of all, the grid's never been sure, so I think it would be a big mistake to discount any of the teams. But if we look at our most current competition, if you'd like, I think we've got a tremendous amount of stability, energy, momentum. I think we've got the best driver lineup on the grid of a combination of experience and youth and longevity. So I think in any sport, stability, visibility, camaraderie, teamwork is critically important. I think we've got that going on. I think Ferrari has that going on. Obviously, they've got a driver change that they need to work through, but exciting for the sport. I think their team principal is doing an excellent job. So I look at Ferrari and go, they're going to be pretty dangerous. I think Mercedes is, impossible to count out, but I think they are going through some transition. They don't yet know their driver lineup for next year. So I think they have a little bit of uncertainty, which an unbelievable team, but that uncertainty, I think, makes it a little bit difficult. And then Red Bull is a pretty toxic environment, with everything that's been going on there.
It sort of seemed that had blown over. I guess you're referring to Christian Horner.
Yeah, I think there's more to come. Adrian Newey leaving is a big deal because there's a lot of people that are probably there that wanted to work alongside Adrian Newey. Mm-hmm. I made the comment, there's some CVs flying around. There are. And there's always CVs flying around, but you can see a higher level of discomfort there. I think it's harder for them in the future with what's kind of gone on with kind of the situation for sponsors. I think sponsors, they kind of look at who they're associated with, what do they stand. I think that's a tricky situation. And then the whole Verstappen drama. Will he stay? Will he go? He's got a contract. You've seen his father be very outspoken. So I think that's a unbelievably a great racing team, but a pretty destabilized environment. And I think you're seeing that with Adrian leave. So I think, again, how could you ever count them out? It's an unbelievable team, but that's a team that in my mind isn't on strong footing right now to where they have been in the past. Aston's not far behind. They've fallen back a little bit here this year, but we're really strong last year. So I think you got to take them all seriously, of course. But I kind of look at who has the clearest path of visibility and momentum, and it kind of feels like it's Ferrari and McLaren at the moment, but things can change pretty quick. So we got to keep our feet on the ground. Does
McLaren have some empty job positions available for anyone who may be jumping ship at any other organization potentially? I couldn't be happier with our racing team, but things are always moving fast and evolving. And anytime someone with a great skill set comes on the market, if you like, you'd be silly not to have conversations. But I love what Andrea Stella has done in leading our team, the momentum we have. It's clearly working. So anything we can do to turbocharge that, we're always open for. You're always trying to go faster. But I like the race car that our team's putting on the racetrack right now.
By the way, you have been at the helm not only for the resurgence of your team, but really for the resurgence of the sport and racing. I mean, I read a comment. You were talking about the fact that Williams was sold for $150 million a few years back, and now it's worth at least 10x. And I just think, the popularity of this already incredibly popular sport has grown so much in the last few years. Is that all down to Drive to Survive, or to what do you attribute that?
I don't think it's all down to Drive to Survive. I think it's definitely played a big role. I think what it's all down to is Liberty. And when they acquired the sport, the way they've reshaped the sport, focus on the fan, get the teams to kind of show the fans behind the curtain, how the sport works, which I think Netflix has played a big role there. So I think where the credit's due is due to Liberty. Netflix has certainly had its role within that. But look at what's happened in North America. We've gone from 1 race to 3 races, a new television partner, a Netflix. We've got a Brad Pitt movie coming, which, who isn't going to watch the next Brad Pitt movie and go, I want to be Brad Pitt, Formula One driver. So we've brought in women to the sport. We've brought in youth to the sport. We've really made great strides in sustainability. So I think you got to look at what Liberty has done for the sport as a whole and all the participants in it the way we've embraced it. And it took a little bit of time. When Netflix came out, year one, Mercedes and Ferrari didn't participate, which was a bit of old school thinking. We don't want to show what's behind the scenes, or the money's not great enough. And I think what the sport has woken up to and has embraced is, let's focus on the fan, and then everything else will fall into place. And that's exactly what we've done. And we have more fans than we've ever had, more Grand Prix than we've ever had, 10 unbelievably healthy racing teams. So it's like everything is just green, 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 go, go, go right now in Formula One. And to me, what's really exciting is I don't see that trajectory going anywhere other than north, because the racing's getting even better and the teams are healthier and we have demand for more Grand Prix than ever. So I think in many ways we're just getting started.
Can there ever be too many Grand Prix in North America? I mean, we're at 5, and there always seems to be rumbling that there could be one in Chicago or New York. Is there a critical mass, so to speak?
I think there is, and I think we're there now, and I'll break that down for you. I think 24 races is the maximum we can do. It's a brutal number. Put aside the fact that I would go race 52 times a year. I wouldn't be very popular with my racing team if I was a proponent of that. So, but I'm a little bit petrol in my blood, not that others don't. So 24, I think, is the max. I think we need to, I'd be an advocate of like 20 fixed races and 8 that rotate every other year. So you maintain a 24 race schedule, but you continue to grow the reach in the markets because the demand is there. Then, of course, who are those that get it every other year? I think we're at maximum capacity in Americas, 3 in North America, 3 in the States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. That's awesome. I don't think, while I think the sport would embrace more, I think that would come to the detriment of other parts of the world. I'd love to see another race or 2 in Asia. I'd love to see us in South Africa, et cetera. So I think the sport and the fans would embrace more races, but I think we're a global championship and we have some other pockets of the world we need to work on. So I think the only way you could bring in another North American race is if that became part of a rotation. Because I'd love to see us in Korea. I'd love to see us in Thailand. We almost got into Vietnam. I'd love South Africa, some of these other territories, and to make sure that we continue to expand our global footprint. India would be a great market to be in. So I think we're in a good place in America.
Can you bail on Monaco?
I was just going to ask that. That's what we all want to know.
I mean, honestly, Zach, can't they just do qualifying and then go to a cocktail party?
No.
Because
could we bail on Monaco? We could. I think the sport is so strong, and we have so many awesome races. Could we? We could. Should we? Will we? I don't think we should, and I don't think we will. But could we? Yes. I think
could Monaco go alternating years?
I mean, certainly that could fall into that camp if you'd like. The spectacle is still amazing. The TV ratings are still very strong. Of course, it isn't it's a pure race. It has the least amount of passing, always has, always will. I think, the sport is commercially so strong that, it's always kind of had one of the more favorable terms and conditions. I think they need to get caught up there because, we are in a commercial sport, and one could argue, wait a minute, some of these other venues are driving similar TV ratings, great racing, and contributing a lot more to the growth of the sport fiscally. You've got the Miamis, the Vegases, the Singapores. I mean, these are all awesome races. So I'd be surprised if it didn't stay on the calendar, but if it went away, would it create a lot of noise in the short term? Yes. Would people move on and Formula One be as strong as ever? I think it would.
Do you get more recognition in the U.S. by far for F1? Because Indy has been so exciting the last few years, and when I was a kid, in the middle of America, people packed up RVs and went to Indianapolis. Like, it was the greatest spectacle in racing. But it just seems like F1 has eclipsed every other league by far.
Formula One's done an amazing job. I think there is a lot Indy Car could learn from Formula One. I think there's a lot Formula One can learn from Indy Car. We can all learn from each other's sport. But Formula One's done an unbelievable job. Yes, I do get a lot more commentary, if you'd like, when I'm in North America about Formula One than IndyCar. I think there's a tremendous amount of untapped potential in IndyCar, but we need to pick up the pace. I think there's a lot of opportunity, some of which we're seizing, and other areas that we need to catch up on, and we need to kind of throw it up a gear or two, and I'm confident we will. But there is a lot of opportunity, and I think we need to pick up the pace, because it wasn't long ago Formula One had no profile in North America, and now we do have to ask ourselves, with our IndyCar hat on, put aside Indy 500 television ratings, why does Formula One have greater television ratings than IndyCar in our home market in awkward time zones where we only race a few times a year? And I think that's a bit of a wake-up call as to we can be and should be doing a better job, because the racing and the product is great. So we have to ask ourselves, why is Miami and Monaco, when to your point wasn't the most exciting racing, why is Monaco getting a bigger television rating in our home market than all of our other races outside of the Indy 500? So I think it's a bit of a wake-up call.
Are you saying that Indy needs a rebrand? A complete rebranding?
I think I wouldn't necessarily say rebranded. I think we need to continue to really focus on the consumer. I think there's a lot of room for improvement around our digital experience, our outreach to the fans. I think we could use a refresh of the product. Our racing cars have been around for quite some time. I think the calendar has room for improvement. So I think there's lots of opportunity. We just need to seize it. I'm confident we will. There's a lot of conversations going on around, freshening up the product. So I don't think it necessarily needs a rebrand, but I think it needs a refreshing. I mean, I think we have to be real when looking at the data and the statistics and go, why does Formula One come into our home market and not long ago had lesser television ratings and now has greater television ratings? So I think that, but I think the good news is I think the product is great. We just need to do a better job.
Roger Penske needs to call John Malone.
I'll leave that to Roger and John.
Well, I'm curious, it is ironic that an American company, Liberty Media, is like you said, sort of the catalyst to launching Formula One in the U.S. and really making it acceptable to American consumers. That just seems ironic. Does it take an American sensibility to translate some of these, at least European style racing? Obviously,
I'm so glad they bought
American.
MotoGP,
which
is already amazing.
Yeah,
so.
I think they're going to do great with MotoGP. I think you never want to kind of stereotype region.
Sure.
I think we got to give a lot of credit to Austin, COTA. They did a fantastic job bringing Formula One back, and then it's just built on itself. And you need date equity. People need to get familiar with the drivers. And I think what Netflix did, especially in North America, is it kind of lifted the cover off of how does this sport work and the personalities and the drama and the politics. And I think, the American fan really likes to get personal with their sport. And I think Formula One had historically, pre-Liberty, been a little bit of a look but don't touch type of sport. And now it's let us get to know these 20 awesome racing drivers and the team bosses. And I think fans around the world. And I think the reason why it's had such a big impact in America is I think it's always been big in Europe and understood, but it was kind of like a fresh sport to America, and Netflix helped kind of put that front and center, and people have responded, and it's been great. I get more commentary now from people in America that go, and it'll be a a guy, a father, a husband, and I can't tell you how often he goes, my daughter loves Formula One. My daughter loves Lando Norris, or my wife won't stop watching it. And what it's done is it's taken, which has, I think, been the most amazing part, it's taking people from having no awareness to avid fan overnight. I hear so often, I won't miss a Grand Prix now, versus I'm aware and I kind of like it. They're like diehard fans. So it's been amazing, and we just need to continue to build on that.
Does it make a difference to your sales, Zach? I mean, especially as you guys have started on a winning run lately. Is it possible to sell more McLarens?
Win on Sunday,
yeah,
sell
definitely.
on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. The good old phrase. It doesn't quite work that easily. We don't see necessarily big spikes on Monday, but you can see North America is our biggest market for our automotive business and continues to grow. And you can see how many McLaren automotive fans are fans of the Formula One team and vice versa. So we're fortunate, like a few others in the sport, where we've got these two awesome brands and the world collide, and we help scratch each other's back, if you like.
What do you drive?
Yeah,
Zach?
what do you like to drive?
Well, my daily driver is a bit more of a Range Rover, because it's not the easiest place in the world to navigate. Of course, I've got my McLarens in the garage, but I'm a car junkie. So if you name a sports car, I've got one of those. So
and you collect too, right? Memorabilia, sports memorabilia.
Yeah, I'm a big baseball fan, ice hockey fan, as far as collecting collectible documents. So I've got a pretty awesome collection. There's all my childhood dreams. And I wanted to be a baseball player, an ice hockey player. It didn't quite work out, but I'm fortunate now. A lot of baseball players, hockey players, golfers, I just came back from the Memorial, are fans of the sport. So it's a privilege being in the position I'm in to be able to meet a lot of my heroes and idols growing up. I don't think they quite realize it, because I think they're equally as excited to kind of come to a Formula One race, but it's pretty cool having Albert Pujols and Paul Goldschmidt and Timo Solani, and as I mentioned, I'm going to have dinner with Marc Messier, who I've not met, who through a mutual friend, which I'm very excited, because I grew up watching Marc. He's an awesome player, and so excited to meet him. It makes me feel like I'm 13, 14 again, even though they probably don't appreciate that dating them.
Now, I want to ask, I see you drinking something out of a teacup. I imagine it's tea. How has it been as an American living in the UK? You know, do you find yourself adjusting to quirky British lifestyles?
Yeah, 100%. But back when I was racing, I lived in England. So I lived there from 91 to 94. I've been there now. It's about 12 years. I love Europe, love England, I love traveling. Always been a fan of it. I definitely think I've picked up some of the quirks, if you'd like to call them that, but I haven't left my American ones behind at all. So I'm a bit of a mutt now. No one can quite figure out my accent, but it all still kind of sounds the same to me.
By the way, when I'm looking through Bring a Trailer, which is like an addiction for me, it annoys me when I see a right-hand drive car that I want, because it's just wrong. Do you buy right-hand drive cars? I mean, for your collection?
Yeah, I got a bit of everything. I mean, if I have a choice, then I'm buying a left-hand drive, but I have both in the collection. It kind of depends. If it's a British car, you're going to end up with a right-hand drive, as it should be, but plenty of left-hand drive. I'd say I'm probably three-quarters.
When you want a car, do you know what you want and find it, or do you look around and something strikes your fancy and you're like, oh, I'd like that?
It kind of depends if it's a road car or if it's a race car. If it's a road car, I know what I want. I kind of know where to go. I've got a few dealer friends, if you'd like, that will sort me out. If it's a race car, you either kind of react. So one that I'd been chasing for years was Nigel Mansell's Indy championship car from 1993. Never had any success. And then Newman Haas put it up for auction, and I was all over that. So the race cars, you kind of know what you want, but they're not necessarily always for sale. So sometimes it's reacting when you see something that comes on the market.
Do you think the price goes up when people realize who they're selling to? Or do you try to keep it a little anonymous if you're interested in something?
It kind of depends who it is and what it is. You mentioned bring a trailer. That was one where I hid.
You don't have to tell us your handle.
No, I had a friend do it for me, a buddy named Alan, where McLaren's motorhome from 1972, and I bought this a few years ago, and I think it won auction story of the year, where it was McLaren's 1972 motorhome. It was awesome, a Ford Condor, and cool. I was like, I definitely have to have this, but I don't want anyone to know who's bidding for it. And the owner had it for quite some time, so I had my buddy bid. He won it, and then it was quite a little bit of a bidding war. And then my buddy said, well, you're never going to outbid the CEO of McLaren. And then everyone just went nuts, including the owner, who had a bit of a teary moment because he had it for quite some time. He wanted it to go to the right home, and no one knew. And that then became quite a cool story. And I love sharing the history of the sport with everyone. I'm happy to share that I'm the biggest fan of motorsports and the history of the sport. So I feel like it's part of my role. I remember what an impression when I went to the Long Beach Grand Prix in 1981, it made on me as a 10-year-old. And so I feel part of my role at McLaren is to share how cool this sport is with the fans. So I'm always stopping and talking to them. Happy to share these stories. And when you get into the car collection and things of that nature, while I have them in my racing facility, we get them out. I like to share them, like to tell people the stories, because I know what an impression it made on me. And I hope that someone, 10, 20, 30 years from now goes, I remember meeting Zach, and it was cool. He let me look at the car. He introduced me to Lando. He stopped and talked to me, because that's what our sport is about. It's about the fans.
By the way, on that note, you mentioned bring more women in the sport, and Hannah and I talk a lot about the academy and trying to get more women to drive. How do you groom young talent? Do you have specific programs for that? When you're talking to little girls and boys, do you say, hey, you guys should try doing some laps in the go-kart? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, one, it's about creating awareness, so people want to get involved in motorsports. Obviously, the driving is the most famous part, but it's important to us to get young boys and girls involved in all aspects of the sport, whether they want to be engineers or marketeers or racing drivers, whatever the case may be. So a lot of it is about just creating awareness, so there's excitement to participate, and then it's about creating opportunity. So we just announced a program called 60 Scholars. Last year was our 60-year birthday, and it was 60 opportunities for young women ages 18 to 23 to get involved with McLaren around STEM. So we're just trying to create awareness, opportunity. It's why we got involved in Extreme E, where you have a male and female racing driver. So we had, for the first ever time a couple of years ago, announced first ever female McLaren racing driver. We've extended that to the F1 Academy, which is an all-female racing series. So we're doing everything we can to create awareness, create opportunity, to have a more diverse workforce and fan base, and it's exciting.
So that was Zach Brown, and wow, what a treat to have him. He always says something that is new or interesting, or just sort of changes how I understand racing and American car culture. He's great.
Yeah, I mean, for example, the fact that F1 could possibly go without Monaco, he made me kind of understand that in a way that I haven't been thinking about the last few weeks. Like, not that they don't want to, and he doesn't think they will, but they could survive because they're strong enough that they don't need it.
I mean, I think that's probably the voice of reason. Like, yes, everyone will freak out, and then everyone will get on with their life, and, they'll move on.
It's interesting also to think about Indy Car just doesn't do enough to promote itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they're obviously not as big and global, but Liberty has really worked some magic with F1. They're going to be able to do that easily with MotoGP, which is on the rise and an amazing series anyway. But imagine if that touch could come over to Indy.
That would honestly be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
So we have a couple of other great guests in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to tease Jim Farley of Ford and get his take. He's a huge racing fan as well. They're now involved with F1 as well. He has, I think, at least a couple, but maybe a collection of old racing cars that he likes. I saw him out in a 1972 Lola once at a track in Dearborn.
That's very cool. Yeah, he's another one that's like just a dude. Like he's a big boss. He's very powerful, but then when you talk to him, he's like a dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting.
With also a great podcast. I've learned a lot about Farley through the podcast, but I'm looking forward to that. And then in a couple of weeks from that, we're going to talk to Tom Wagner in his role as the head of Nighthead Capital, singer, Revology, Yota, a racing team that does WEC, World Endurance Racing, so they do Le Mans. And they even own like a British soccer team.
I'm really curious to talk to him. I've never met him. Have you met him?
I think cycling. I have in not in a car guy sense, but in a business sense, just in my role as an anchor here over the last couple of years on Bloomberg Television. I've interviewed him, but I never realized that he was the head of this giant car sports conglomerate. So I'm excited to touch base with him.
This is an example of someone who's not famous and not really a name outside of certain circles, but who actually controls a lot and who has their hands in a lot of different facets that affect a lot of different people.
Right. He's pretty famous because they own Hertz also.
Okay, fine.
What are you driving this week? What have you got going on in the car space?
I received the Mercedes-Benz EQE 500 in emerald green metallic. This is
not SUV. EQE, is it SUV or is it? Oh, it is.
It's an SUV. It's indistinguishable from the other EQE.
They don't make a great distinction between these products with the
For me, it's
with the alphanumeric naming thing.
It's difficult to remember which is which, and when all of the names and numbers are very similar, and then they all look extremely similar, it starts to feel a little like alphabet soup.
Doesn't even look like an SUV. It's like a crossover. Well, I guess it's a crossover. It looks
like a crossover, but this is where Cadillac went with their latest optic, too, where I truly did ask them. I said, this could kind of be a wagon. It has a hatchback. It's low. It's long. And they're like, yeah, we're calling it an SUV. But the lines are very blurred these days. I mean, it's tomato almost.
It looks slick. I mean, it's got probably a great
initial driving impressions are low. Let me put it that way.
Really?
This is not a vehicle you will want to purchase if you at all enjoy the act of driving. Let me put it that way.
Interesting, because I like the EQS, which is the bigger version.
Yeah, no, don't get this one then. if you want to feel like you're driving fast or fun.
But I imagine it's still very comfy, packed with leather and.
No. I think. I can't give it a full take yet because I really have only had it for 24 hours or 36 hours. But
we'll circle back.
We need to circle back on it. The jury is definitely still out. It certainly is not the high-end luxury experience that you might find in other Mercedes-Benz vehicles.
I'm hoping for a slew of amazing vehicles later on this summer. I really want to drive the Mustang Dark Horse. I really want to drive the Corvette E-Ray.
We're getting that.
Have you seen the Jason Camissa, the Hagerty video? I don't know why people do drag races all the time because I don't care about a drag race, but he nails it with this video of a drag race. He does the E-Ray versus a Lamborghini Huracan, a Ferrari, is it an F8? I think it's an F8, and a Corvette Z06.
Okay.
And interestingly, the E-Ray clobbers them all. But it's a more interesting video than just the drag race, so I'm really excited to drive that.
Okay, yeah, me too.
All-wheel drive, plus a 1.9 kilowatt, which seems to be the sweet spot for hybrids because that's what the size of the Porsche battery is too. So that's interesting. But right now I'm driving the Kia Sorento.
Why is that, Matt?
Wah, wah. You would think that's lame, but I'll tell you. So when I get a press car, a lot of times I'll get a press car that, as I've said, isn't that exciting, and I'd rather drive my Challenger.
Sure.
Big Hemi, more fun.
Yes.
I feel
personality.
Exactly. So this week I was driving the Challenger in, and it was raining a lot. I did some hydroplaning, and I knocked off some of the NVH material on the bottom of the car.
No.
It was really scary, but I was okay, and the vehicle was pretty much okay. And then, so this morning I thought, it's raining again. Let me take the Kia. And
Wait,
it was really good.
Car? Is this your wife's car?
No, it's a press car. It's the
it is. Okay.
the brand new Kia Sorento.
Okay.
It looks very cool, just like the Telluride looks very cool. But I was never impressed with the Telluride motor. And, okay, the motor's not the sweet spot for the Kia Sorento either, but it's just a really nicely done package. The interior is intuitive, easy to use. They have that cool tech where when you put on a turn signal, you see the camera view out that side in your dash. And
what's the starting price? Do we know?
I will Google that for you.
Yeah.
I'm seeing them for low 40s, high 30s.
Does that seem fair based on what you're getting?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially in today's market.
Yeah.
I think it looks pretty cool. I got it in a very good color. It's like a gray, brownish gray. That doesn't sound good, brownish gray, but it looks really cool. Even the parking lot attendant was like, oh, I like the color, you know?
At least it's not white. Just a generic white.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a fan of this brand and Hyundai and Genesis.
Yes. They're doing really smart stuff.
Yeah. So
if the price is fair for what you get, what more can you ask for?
True.
You know?
True. You're not going to get down to BYD prices, $11,000 for the Seagull. Right. In any case, all right, I guess that's all we have for today. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.